Welcome to Valley Politics. I'm Terry Christensen, and today we're focusing on redistricting for the San Jose City Council and the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors. The districts of these elected officials are supposed to have equal populations, but over time, the population in some district grows more than others, and in some the population may even decrease. So every 10 years after the census, district lines are redrawn to keep the population of the districts as close to equal as possible. To do this, the county and the city set up redistricting commissions comprised of citizens, not politicians or the elected officials themselves, but engaged citizens. In the case of the county commission, 5 members were appointed by the Board of Supervisors, 5 were selected randomly, and 5 were chosen by the other 10. Each district must have 3 representatives for a total of 15. Our guests today are Jeffrey Buchanan of Working Partnerships USA. Jeffrey was part of a coalition of community groups that produced their own unity redistricting plan for the City Council. And our other guest is Teresa Alvarado, the former San Jose Director of SPUR and a past candidate for County Supervisor. She's currently with PGE. They'll help us understand some of the issues involved with drawing new district lines for the County Board and the City Council. And that's what's coming up on Valley Politics. Welcome everyone, and welcome Teresa Alvarado and Jeffrey Buchanan. Guests, once again, you were on once before with us. Thank you. We're going to talk about county and city redistricting today. We'll start with the county. According to the census data, each county district should have a population of about 388,000. But District 1 in the South County and Central County District 2 are below that count by 14,000 in the case of District 1, 38,000 in the case of District 2, pretty significant. The other 3 districts are over that count by up to 28,000 residents, so some adjustment needs to be done. That's what redistricting is all about. And that raises certain issues. One you're both familiar with is whether there are 15 cities in the county. Should they be split up? Most of the cities really don't want to be split up, so that's a strong pressure on the people drawing the lines. And the other the other issue that comes up consistently is certain communities of interest, particularly Latino and Asian communities, and their opportunities to gain representation. So the Commission is considering several maps as we speak. We don't know which one or ones they'll finally recommend to the Board of Supervisors. But let's take a look at a popular one that Jeffrey Buchanan had something to do with creating, and that's called the Unity Map. Jeff, tell us a little bit about that map and what the coalition behind it was trying to achieve.
Yeah, so I think at the beginning of this process, we had a number of organizations, civil rights groups like the NAACP and the Asian Law Alliance, the Latino Leadership Alliance, my organization, Silicon Valley Rising Action, and the La Raza Roundtable. We sat down at the beginning of this process because of the fact that you had, as you said, population growth in part of the county and population loss in other parts of the county. How do you still maintain the kind of communities that see themselves as communities of interest together? How do you keep that coherence between, say, the neighborhoods of East San Jose and downtown San Jose that, like we saw in the pandemic, have a lot of mutual interest when it comes to county programming? But then also, how do you deal with the fact that we have some historic political structures that tend to break up communities of interest? So think about our neighbors in the South County where Morgan Hill, Gilroy, San Martin, you have about a 44% Hispanic population. Why are they linked together with Los Gatos and Almaden Valley, which has about 8% Hispanic population? And so with that in mind, we tried to come together as a group to draw lines that we think better represent communities of interest. And in the end, the result is giving more voice to working families and communities of color across the county. And so we feel pretty excited about the opportunity of the Unity Map.
And that Unity Map keeps all of the cities intact in individual districts, except of course for San Jose, which is too big for any one district. It's big enough for a couple of districts.
Exactly. The exciting thing is for many years, the city of Sunnyvale had been cut in half and split between District 3 in the north and District 5 in the west. We found that you're able to unite Sunnyvale, and that's something that we've heard from a lot of residents in the community that wanted to see that unity, while still, keeping that district a majority-minority district. This is important. As you're drafting plans, the Voting Rights Act is very specific. If you can draw a majority-minority district, which means that the majority of citizen voting age residents in that district are of a certain ethnic or a certain ethnic background, that you need to draw that. And so we were able to have that unity of combining the city of Sunnyvale, keeping other cities whole, and meeting that Voting Rights Act requirement.
Splitting up Sunnyvale was a big issue in the 2000 redistricting and the 2010 redistricting, and an issue still, but maybe resolved at least by this map. Let me take you back one. You said some districts had lost population. Did they really lose population, or just that they're under the count?
I should say that they have a lower than ideal population.
Yeah.
So because of growth, thank you for proportionately they have lost population.
Right.
So you're right. We haven't actually lost. Every district has gained. There aren't any rollbacks in any of the kind of key demographics, but proportionally we've seen some changes. We've seen proportionally a growth in the Asian American population. We've seen proportionally a slight reduction in every district except for District 1 in Hispanic residents in Santa Clara County. And so there are some changes, as you said. District 2 needed to grow because proportionately it had less population. District 1 needed to grow because it proportionally had less population. And so those are some of the other key factors that led us to draw the map like we did.
Teresa, did you get a chance to look at this map? Because it does something to a district you once ran for supervisor in, District 1, which included, when you ran, Los Gatos, Almaden Valley, and Montecito. This map moves them into the kind of West Valley district that runs all the way up to Palo Alto. What do you think about that move? Does that dramatically, would you have won?
I don't know about that, but I do think it makes a lot of sense in the sense that, South County is so distinct in our county, but it doesn't have the population to be its own district regardless. It has always included, as you said, Los Gatos and Montecito, but also parts of Evergreen. And now this just shifts the West Valley cities, I think, to be in greater alignment with other communities, other cities that they probably have more of a natural affinity with. I doubt that people from Los Gatos consider themselves part of South County. But as Jeffrey mentioned, the population is more diverse in District 1, more Latino population. And so taking in more parts of the downtown, more parts of the Evergreen area probably do make a lot of sense.
Jeffrey, a couple of the districts are they minority majority? I mean, it's hard to talk about anybody being a minority in this valley because everybody's a minority in this valley. But the Sunnyvale district you were talking about is going to have, is it an Asian majority or?
Yeah, so it's, in Voting Rights Act terms, and I think in a lot of times in discussing Census Bureau data, there's some outdated terminology, I think let's put that out there to begin with. But under the Voting Rights Act, you need to have 50% what they call citizen voting age population. So that's a data set that the Census Bureau keeps where they estimate who's the population of possible voters in a district. And that district has 50%, I think it's like 50.1% Asian citizen voting age population. And so, we were able to keep in our District 2, so that's the East San Jose and downtown San Jose and Central San Jose district, 50% population of Latinos, but the citizen voting age population for that district is only around 40%. You have some subset of folks that are living there that wouldn't necessarily be able to vote, may not be registered, and so that's a reflection of that. But you still have a majority population Latino district in the county in our map.
District 3 already has an Asian American representative, Otto Lee. District 2 has Latina, Cindy Chavez. So the prospects for those groups gaining representation continue to be strong in those districts. And maybe in District 1, a better chance for a Latina candidate like Teresa Alvarado or although she doesn't live there anymore.
I do not.
Speaking of where people live, there are a couple of candidates running for District 1 right now who could be out of the district if this map got approved. Johnny Camus from the Almaden Valley and Rob Rennie from Los Gatos. So that would
You know what?
shake
Every
things up.
candidate who has declared knew that every jurisdiction is going through redistricting.
Yeah.
So this is true across the board. School districts, water district, Congress, all of them know that the lines are being redrawn. And because we got the data so late from the Federal Census Bureau, we knew that it was going to be a very condensed process. So I think every candidate went into running for office understanding that those lines could be changing, and some very dramatically given the shifts in population.
Of course, there's a fix for this for some candidates. You two are far too young to remember, but Susie Wilson, when she ran for county supervisor in 1978, didn't quite live in the district, so she rented an apartment. And in 1980, they redrew the lines and included her home. It doesn't always work that way anymore. It's not so easy for elected officials to sort of manipulate the lines, although we'll see, because these lines we're talking about are far from final. Let's get to the city council maps. These districts need to be close to 101,000 in population, and with a couple of exceptions, they're actually not very far off. But those exceptions are Berryessa and North San Jose, the northern district, which is 17,000 over that number, and the downtown district, which has grown because of the high-rise development and because of people doubling up in single-family homes and for a variety of reasons. It's about 7,000 over. Some other districts are significantly below, particularly the southernmost districts, 9 and 10. Again, they haven't necessarily lost population, but they haven't gained proportionally to keep up. So some significant adjustments are necessary. It's not necessarily easy, in part because every tweak you do to a boundary has a repercussion elsewhere. So it's real easy to draw a single district, but what's it do to all the others? And we've been going through this with the North San Jose, with downtown, North San Jose, East Side districts for 20 years, anyway, in redistricting. But you do really need to know the community well to do this well. You need to know neighborhoods, you need to know communities of interest that aren't always obvious. The consultants for the City Commission came up with some very interesting initial maps labeled A, B, and C that were not very well received. What was your impression of those maps, Teresa?
Well, I would say that the first set of maps are really to get people to start paying attention, right, to the process. They certainly did. I mean, this is a commission, at least in San Jose, which I chaired the commission for part of the year, and I had to step down for personal reasons in June. But we have been going since January, had a lot of great speakers, learned from Common Cause and people that have served on California redistricting commissions about their experience, learned all about communities of interest and what was to come when we did get the data. And so I think the first set of maps, it was a good way to get people to focus. And it was very interesting to me that particularly on the east side of 101, all the shifts, District 4 had to make a pretty large shift in population. And the implications on the adjacent districts, on Berryessa, on Allen Rock, on Evergreen, are really fascinating because then you see the racial populations as well, ethnic populations that are impacted. So we talk about Asian majority districts and Latino majority districts, and those influence one another. But what I think is really fascinating as well when you're talking about communities of interest is that you're weighing all those things against all the other factors that people consider to be their mutual interests. Whether it's a cultural hub or a business district or a school district or even a natural resource. I'm just going to say Vasona Lake. If you live near Vasona Lake, perhaps you strongly identify with Vasona Lake. And so those are all the very tough things that you're weighing as someone who's looking at the lines and evaluating how they benefit the community.
Jeff, your impression of those first maps, ABC?
Yeah. I mean, I think you saw a really strong visceral reaction from particularly communities on the east side with just how it was cut up, cutting off parts of the Allen Rock Business District. cutting off parts of the southern part of now District 5 and moving that off, what it did to the kind of makeup of our districts, and particularly the kind of political voice of our Latino community here in San Jose. It's challenging to try to construct maps that continue to recognize these kinds of cultural linkages between neighborhoods, that recognize the kind of historic imbalances that we've faced as a community. You think about the history of redlining and racial covenants and how that connects with how we're drawing lines and how communities intersect. Not only do we have to look at how do we kind of maintain those structures that we've all come to know and those relationships we've come to know, but I think in the conversations we've had with the community, there's a lot of interest in how do we recognize that there are some neighborhoods that have been drawn together historically for certain reasons, and that's to keep other neighborhoods from having the same kind of voice. And so I think as a group, our unity mapping table, that was one of the things we were trying to overcome, looking at parts of the city that the places like Hoffman Viamonte or other neighborhoods where they're kind of islands of multifamily housing with diversity amidst more homogeneous, wealthier parts of the city. How do you draw communities like that into districts where they can have a voice?
Well, another neighborhood that was very upset about this was my home neighborhood of Nagley Park in District 3. But other neighborhoods around District 3, Vendome, Northside, Buchanon, were also concerned about some of these initial maps, which really chopped up District 3 like it did District 5, I think even worse than District 5. And some of these are neighborhoods that have been working together since the 1970s. We formed a Central City Coalition before there was even district elections to advocate for the downtown neighborhoods. So people were seriously upset, especially by these first maps, and did not want to see District 3 so broken up. So some of them got together and did the hard work of actually drawing a map, which is really easy to do with the District R application. It's a really cool application people should check out if they just want to see how difficult it actually is to draw these maps. But they came up with what they call the community map, which minimally alters the districts around the city. Some of them need to be altered probably more than this map proposes, but it keeps District 3 pretty much intact. And most other districts minimally changed. I'm not sure that map's going to make it into the final considerations of the commission. Did either of you have a chance to look at it?
Yeah. I mean, I think while they were aiming to make minimal changes, the challenge is that the downtown in North San Jose have grown to the fact where minimal changes still require hard choices.
Yeah.
And so, pushing neighborhoods like Spartan Keys or Washington Guadalupe, which historically have a connection to those downtown neighborhoods and also happen to be more heavily Latino homeowner-based neighborhoods, into a District 7, all of a sudden you're watering down the Vietnamese community's voice in a seat where they have among the most dense population. And so, and then from there pushing off other parts of District 7 further south. And so there's a really delicate balance in trying to draw maps, and I can understand folks in the downtown would like to stay connected. But I think there's a way to be able to connect those communities that have been most vocal and the key landmarks of downtown, the airport, City Hall, San Jose State, and that's actually something that's reflected in our unity map. So it encourage folks in the community to take a look at that as well.
Well, let's get to the unity map. So this was put together by the same coalition that you talked about with the county unity map, right?
Yep, the same coalition. And so, really the same set of goals, looking at the relationships of communities of interest in the city of San Jose, and thinking about how do we really, keep those communities, those working families, those communities of color connected, and, perhaps undo some of the historic efforts to, draw together districts to minimize their voice. And so basically looking at growth, we had to make some tough choices, and in talking with some of our partners in the downtown, came up with this idea of two downtown districts. One with the historic landmarks in the historic neighborhoods like Northside, like Nagley Park, Japantown, Washington Guadalupe, Many of the associations that have been most active are a part of that downtown district. But then a second district with the western side of the downtown core bleeding into downtown west, and neighborhoods like Shasta-Hanchett and now the northern section of District 6. So this is a set of communities that's reflecting where the kind of new center of gravity and development is shifting, and where you have a lot of diversity and multifamily housing, and we think reflects more of a community of interest than the current alignment.
Teresa, did you get a chance to look at the Unity map?
No, I didn't.
No, okay. Any reaction to what Jeff said so far?
No.
Because I've got some from community folks.
Go ahead.
One comment, you've seen it with some of the stuff that's been written and with comments to the commission, is that plan focuses too much on race. What's your response to that?
So I think it's one of the factors that we took into writing the map. And if you look at the Voting Rights Act, it's very clear that is a factor that you can take into account, particularly in looking at how are you righting historic wrongs of those folks who, by past lines, had their voice minimized. And so it's one of the factors, but we also looked at things like where do renters live? How are they represented in these districts? What kind of socioeconomic realities are we seeing in these districts? Does it make sense to have extremely low income neighborhoods surrounded by much wealthier neighborhoods, say in some parts of District 9 and District 10? We took all of those things into consideration, and a vast amount of the community of interest input up to the time we drafted those maps. And since then, we've been updating them as we've been engaging with neighborhood associations and community leaders to try to best reflect what we think is possible in these maps. And so I understand there's a lot of people who would like to see no change, but unfortunately, with what the law requires, there's going to need to be some amount of change. And if we're moving in a direction of change, how are we changing to become more equitable as a city's
And if you
important
totally
task?
ignored race, that would not be legal either.
No, you would.
Right?
The city would draw a number of lawsuits if all of a
Sure.
sudden they just started, drawing lines willy-nilly. And I think this is important. Redistricting is about people. Redistricting isn't about pretty lines, who can draw the nicest looking shape. It's about people. And so we need to be thinking about people in all the ways that they're showing up as community members and families.
But I think that's a really important comment, that really acknowledging that people are showing up in different ways in their community, right?
Yeah.
And the representation of the commissions are intended to be regular citizens, regular community members, not experts, not political allies. In fact, you have to be neutral. You're not there to represent an incumbent, a candidate. It's really democracy at the most grassroots level, which is so exciting. And having been familiar with the City of San Jose Commission, they're just an incredibly committed group of individuals who are trying to balance all of these things and all these various interests that, there is no one right answer. We each are coming to this process with our own set of values, our own set of priorities, and that's reflected in the maps that we're going to see.
And my impression is that this round of redistricting has been less political because of who's on these commissions than past rounds have been. Jeffrey, another criticism relating to my district again, District 3. The Unity map has kind of a weird hook up at the top that goes over to the airport. Yep. Some people say that looks like gerrymandering, that it contravenes the requirements for contiguous compact districts. Why the weird hook?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've heard when people think about the downtown is, again, the major landmarks as much as neighborhoods. Downtown is the airport, it's San Jose State, it's City Hall. And so trying to reflect that, we did try to keep the airport in our District 3. We do maintain contiguity. We don't pass up over, there's no point in the map where we're going from a populated area to an unpopulated area to a populated area. In terms of compactness, it's actually rather similar to many of the districts in 2011. And so while, again, redistricting is about people. It's not, maybe the lines may look different than a perfect square that maybe some would like, but we're complicated. The contours of San Jose, our natural features, our built infrastructure, it's not all a pretty lined up square. And so to reflect people's, what they think about as downtown, we, in keeping within the fact that downtown has grown, and so we have to let off population somewhere. We came to that kind of infrastructure, which we think still keeps the historic neighborhoods and the key landmarks all in one district.
We're almost out of time, so we'll give you an opportunity for final comments. Jeffrey, one more criticism of the Unity Plan comes from the downtown folks who don't want to be split into two districts. I think it makes a lot of sense, but maybe you could explain that once again. Why is it good for downtown to be downtown east, downtown west, two different districts?
Yeah, so I think I would say there's a lot of people in the city of San Jose who would prefer not to be placed into the districts that they're placed. I would say that there are a lot of people around the I-85 corridor that for many years in District 9 and District 10, multifamily, working class families that have not had the kind of representation that they would like. I think there are parts of District 6 where you have low-income renters, communities of color that have not had their phone calls answered as quickly as those people in Willow Glen. So I understand the Downtown Association's hopes of remaining together. I would like to be able to draw a map that could have kept all those neighborhoods together. But unfortunately, there's a lot of needs we have as a city, and so we need to take it all into account.
Another way to look at it, downtown gets 2 representatives. They might not find that so bad in the end. Teresa, we have a minute left. Do you have some wrap-up comments?
No, I like how you frame that, though, because it's easy to criticize these processes. It's easy to say it's gerrymandering or it's some special interest. Well, we all have special interests. How I identify as a resident of San Jose and how I see myself as a member of a particular district is going to change over time. I mean, our communities are changing every day. Japantown used to be, Chinatown. And so we just have to think about the evolution of our community. The growth in various ethnic groups is absolutely going to change. We've seen the representation on our city council and the board of supervisors change over the last 10 years, and we're going to continue to see that evolve.
Well said. Jeffrey Buchanan, Teresa Alvarado, thank you very much for being with us today. The board and council will hold public hearings on the recommended plans, so there's still an opportunity for public comment. To follow the process, go to the websites for county and city redistricting. New district lines won't be final until December or January, so there's still time to express your views to the city council or county board. And we'll be back next month as usual. Meanwhile, you can follow us on Facebook, and you can catch up on all our previous shows on our website at createtvsj.org or on YouTube by searching for CreateTV San Jose. And now, that's all, folks. Thanks for watching.